Thank you all. I would now like to introduce the stage Devex Editorial Director Richard Jones for a session with one of our partners. Richard, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Kate, and thanks to Advar on our previous panel. So good afternoon, welcome. I'm delighted to be joined on the stage by Anurag Hans, who is Head of Mission at EssilorLuxottica and President of the OneSight EssilorLuxottica Foundation, and also Dr. Bente Mikkelsen, who's Director of Non-Communicable Diseases at the World Health Organization. Welcome both. Please take a seat. So perhaps, Anurag, I could start with you to give our audience some context and some perspective on the issue of uncorrected poor vision that we're talking about today. So it's known as one of, if not the world's most widespread unaddressed disability. Perhaps you could provide some context about the needs of vision health globally, why it's so widespread in 2023, despite such solutions as eyeglasses.
Well, thanks, Richard, and thanks everybody for making the time. So the state of the issue of vision care is truly large. We believe that 1 in 3 people has a condition which can be corrected through a simple pair of eyeglasses, but it's not the case right now. But we believe that, you know, in addition to this being probably the largest disability, it will also be probably the first disability of this scale to get solved, and get solved in rapid, quick time. Not only because you know, the solutions in terms of eyeglasses exist, but also because you know, the work that has happened to build capacity to provide you know, eye exams and to deliver eyeglasses has truly reached a stage where it can be scaled up and it can be you know, replicated around the world. So yes, it's the largest disability in the world, but I'm very optimistic about the fact that it will also be the first such major health issue to get solved permanently.
But following up on that, how are people in low and middle income country contexts particularly affected by poor vision?
Well, the rates of incidence are exactly the same.
Right.
You know, in the developed regions and the developing or underdeveloped regions. The issue is not about eyeglasses. The issue is about the fact that there is no place where people can go to get a simple eye exam and get a pair of glasses from. And the second thing is that because they've never been exposed to anybody in their community providing them an eye exam, there's no awareness about the fact that, you know, blurred vision is something that they can do something about. Those are the 2 main causes keeping billions of people away from leading a life where they can see clearly. And those are the 2 issues which now, with the help of technology and, you know, telemedicine and even, I mean, we are hugely excited about AI and predictive models and big data powered you know, screening models, which will help these communities completely leapfrog the way that eye care has developed in developed context. So that's why I say I'm hugely optimistic about the fact that 10 years down the line, when we meet, we will not be discussing the state of the issue, but we'll be discussing the success story.
Now, I remember discussing the 2019 report, Eliminating Poor Vision in a Generation, with staff at EssilorLuxottica. That highlighted the need for increased access to subsidized or even free services and access points. Can you give us some examples of how the foundation's working to address those needs? I know you're working on the Eye Mitra program, for example. Why are community-based solutions like this so important?
Well, it's important because it's important for people to have a place, a permanent place where they can go to get an eye exam closer to the place where they live. Now, since 2019, obviously, some things have happened because of the pandemic. the downside was that because of the pandemic, because of screen times, myopia rates have shot up. But the positive was, because of the pandemic, a lot of countries became open to the concept of telehealth. And that is becoming a huge enabler in creating access, both in person and digitally. And since the digital models work, I mean, we've done large pilots to study whether they actually work in terms of accuracy and efficacy, and they do. So therefore, the process of creating access is going to look very different, and therefore we'll be able to create access in double quick time as compared to what we had originally envisaged of creating 1 million physical access points. These million physical access points probably still need to be there, but the mode of delivery is going to be completely different.
Now, Dr. Bente, turning to you, in 2021, the UN General Assembly adopted its first ever resolution on vision. That was entitled Vision for Everyone, Accelerating Action to Achieve the SDGs. Do you think the resolution has really impacted the prioritization of vision in health policy discussions and things like funding allocations, healthcare planning? Could you give us your temperature check on how that's going?
No, I would like to say, first of all, thank you to Devex to
Pleasure.
raise these questions, because, I want to start with saying I think the whole issue is immoral. Really immoral. I mean, 800 million people have vision impairment that could have been helped by simple spectacles. So, of course, I totally agree that we need to think about AI solutions. We need to think about new service delivery models. But for me, this is really something I want to think through, and I want you to think about it. This is the week of universal health coverage. 800 million only need what I have and sees as natural. And this is also in a place where we know that many of the spectacles have recirculated plastic as an opportunity. We could use our own iPhones. So that's where I will start. So in a sense, it's an irony, because Vision program was one of the first programs of WHO. So it was actually to prevent blindness. So it was on due time that we got a resolution. Has it helped? Yes, I would say so, but we are not there yet, but I share the optimism. So one of the first important thing is that I think for the first time, we really realized that we have to have an integration into the rest of the health system. We cannot sort of have it on an island. It has been a little bit on an island. So, it hasn't necessarily been a natural thing for a GP to really do anything else to check the vision, not really to correct it, right? And the other one is, of course, that we have got the new targets, that we also want to look into cataract operations. That should be absolutely the simplest thing. I mean, we have riverboats in many developing countries where they do lots of them with very local anesthesia. Again, not a question of doing it. So I would say the two targets that we have got and the resolution, which is very instrumental, has led to several things. So the way WHO work is that when we have a resolution, the next thing we do is to give recommendations. We try to come up with framework. So we have stepwise guides, and now we are going to launch a new initiative. I'll come back to that.
Okay, well, yeah, well, on that point, the WHO recently announced the launch of the SPECS strategy. So I was going to ask what role, well, briefly, maybe to put it in a nutshell for our audience, what the SPECS strategy aims to achieve, and then what role organizations such as foundations like OneSight EssilorLuxottica, what role do they play in realizing the goals that you've set out in this ambitious strategy?
So the SPECT is a comprehensive from sort of diagnostics, looking into provisional care and all of that. I think the main thing with SPECT is that we call on all stakeholders. We cannot only do this as a medical issue. So the foundation is absolutely key. I mean, and we need many more players as well. We need the NGO, we need the academicians, we need the innovators, and we need to find ways to work together. So the SPECT, one of the first things we will do now is to launch a platform, a network, where we can work together and exchange ideas, but hold ourselves accountable as well for the implementation. So I think this will, again, be a game changer. I have seen that now happening in the Global Diabetes Compact, where we really work very closely with private sector, of course, with all the protection of undue influence and all that. But anyway, we manage in a very different way. And we all have a role to play. We don't have the same role to play, and that's sometimes the mistake, right? We have different roles, but we have to do it together.
And perhaps staying with you, Bente, just to finish, I know time is short, but both of your organizations have this ambition to eliminate uncorrected poor vision within a generation. Are you optimistic? Is this within reach? If so, what's key to accelerating progress?
Mm-hmm. No, so I want to also pinpoint that, the service coverage is very different. So in low and middle income countries is actually 6 times less. So we need to focus. We cannot do everything at once, but I'm very hopeful that the targets of 70% coverage will be possible within 2030. And I think it's better to put a number on it than say just everyone, because that is everyone and nothing. So I am very optimistic, and I hope that we can be working very closely together on this.
Anurag, perhaps a brief word from you on this. Are you optimistic? Will it be achieved? And if so, how do we get there? What's one key step that you would recommend to our audience in terms of partnering for success here?
I think the organized vision care industry in developed regions of the world has taken 200 years to come about. I believe that creating the same ecosystem in regions where that ecosystem doesn't exist is going to take a fraction of that time. As I said before, I believe that in the next 10 or maybe 15 years, this issue is going to get solved, but in a very different, very modern, very tech-enabled way. And eventually, this issue only gets solved through market-based mechanisms and governments creating mechanisms that are self-sustaining and self-funding. And we believe that the work that has happened in the sector, both done by us and by other organizations that have worked here, we have enough demonstration, and governments nowadays are extremely open to such innovations. So in a nutshell, yes, I'm extremely optimistic, and this is not purely out of hope. This is out of the evidence that we've already seen on the ground.
But if I can have one
final
more.
word. Bente.
Final word is we are in the week of UHC. Governments need to take ownership, and they need to include eye care also in their normal service packages for the
And so your call to action here is
governments need to take action. They need to include it in their UHC.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bente, Anurag. Thank you very much for your perspectives here today. Really appreciate it, and all the best for the rest of your UNGA week. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Bente.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.